Today we're joined by Thomas Robbins, all the way from New Zealand, who's going to be presenting at Screen Forever this year on the Gold Coast. He's a senior commissioner at the moment for Sky Originals in New Zealand, but a long and storied career before that as a writer, director, and producer. Thanks so much for joining us, Thomas.
Thank you, Dave. Great to be here, Jacob. Thank you.
So we spoke earlier about your history of being a writer, producer, director, and even an actor, with everything from web series and television series to feature films. Can you talk a little bit about your journey in the film industry, where you got started, what drove your passion, and then how you've ended up now as senior commissioner at Sky Originals?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I started out, the classic kind of guy. Went to university and did a year of commerce and then did 2 years of architectural drafting. And my parents were going, God, was our son going to do anything? Well, I don't think they ever said that, but I did feel for them, And my first ever thing was I auditioned for like a comedy theatre show, and kind of suddenly felt like I felt my people, and I found what I want to do. And so I went from that, and I was given a job as a camera operator, and then moved into kind of presenting a little bit, and was my first ever audition I did as an actor was for a show called for a film called Heavenly Creatures. And I do tell this story because it's the classic New Zealand self-deprecating story. We're very aware as Kiwis to not, trumpet our successes. So my first ever audition, and I got this part in Heavenly Creatures with Kate Winslet, and suddenly I was on set with Kate Winslet doing the scene and thinking, I've made it, and this acting is so easy. I did one audition, and then I remember finding out from the director, who didn't realise. He said, "I know you," and I went, "Yeah, I'm in this film that you're doing." And he said, "Oh, man, you got cut, right?" So that scene with Kate got cut. I saw it once, literally, when the editor pulled it out in the old school days and pulled it out of the bin, and showed me the scene once. And off the back of that, I think it might be fair to say that Peter Jackson felt a bit guilty, and he cast me in a few other shows out of guilt. I think more than talent, for a show called Forgotten Silver, which was a fake documentary back in the late 90s, and then Lord of the Rings, where I played the role of Deagol in the third film. So I had this sort of brief but fun acting career, and then it all kind of dried up when I realised the only person who thought I could act was Peter Jackson, And I started to get into directing, and was working for a show called What Now, and I asked got the producer, which is a kid show, and asked him if we could do drama, and he said, "We don't have any experience, you don't have the budget for it." I said, "Well, just give me a camera operator and a lighting person, and we'll just do the rest." So we did, and went from there, and from there till about 18 months ago, I've been writing and directing and producing, film and television, and interactive web series for over 20 years. Sounding a little old now, but so up to a point where Annie Murray, who's an old friend and now my boss, came to me and said, "We'd like you to come and start take charge of scripted at Sky Originals. They're building Sky Originals." And I, of course, being a creative, said, "I'm not going to be one of those corporate people. I'm a creative." But she's amazing. She's one of the best people, if not the best people in this industry. I adore her, and I'm super respectful of her, and she's amazing. And so because of her, and then Dana, who was the head of Factual, I thought she was cool. And then I ended up having a glass of wine with our CEO, and I thought, well, if I'm, working for these three women, I'm all in. And so I, finished a film and took a few days off and walked into this world. So sorry, that's probably quite a long.
No, that's great. It must have been quite a change, the sort of day to day for you. What is like a day in the life?
It was, well, now? Yeah, it was like, my children almost stopped talking to me because I got rid of my Apple Mac and was given a PC. I was given a lanyard, and I had to swipe into this thing and have meetings and learn these new corporate languages, which is, has been a running gag for me since I've been at Sky. But I think everyone at Sky go, okay, Thomas, you've been here for like 18 months. Those gags are getting thin now. Which is fair enough. But it did change everything. But I was really unsure about becoming, as people say, on the other side, which I don't look at it like that. I still feel like I'm stretching when using my creative brain, but in a different way. I love working with, I still work with producers and creatively on scripts. And what I love is being there to help enable people. It's their beautiful idea and it's their thing, and I'm just here to kind of help carry that idea through commissioning it, a bit of development, working internationally to get other international partners on board. It's changed in some ways a lot, but in a lot of ways it hasn't, and I'm still at the cold face, I feel, of the creative world, which I love.
And when you talk about bringing other partners in from internationally and domestically as well, obviously when you come to Screen Forever, you're also talking about co-productions. In your mind, what makes a co-production firstly, and then also what makes a successful co-production? What makes it believable?
So we haven't, we've got international collaborations. We have a big serial killer show coming out with a big international studio. So we've got that, but that's more of a funding thing. They came to us to help with the financing through license fees and funding through production grants and things here. I am really focused on international. It's kind of weird because when I first arrived, there was very little scripted at Sky Originals, and my first job, I think, was for us to let the industry know that we are genuine players and the supporting local. We are still the small guys here, and we fly under the radar a little bit more, which I like. We're wanting to work with the best, and we want people to come bring their ideas to us, before the big wigs, So we're kind of working on that, but that of course all comes down to, relationships and people trusting us and all that kind of stuff. So it's a building thing, really. But we do have a big focus on international. I think international is really interesting. You can look at it from a financial perspective, and that you're bringing money in to close a gap, and how do your points work with them. But I'm a story guy first, and I have been pitched a lot of shows of a foreign person comes to New Zealand to solve a murder or have an affair or do this kind of thing, and you can clearly see that it's one of those kind of co-productions. My dream is to get writers from, let's say, Australia and New Zealand in a room as soon as we can. There's a seed of an idea. Let's bring 3 of Australia's coolest writers with 3 of ours and let them develop it. So it has a real authentic it has an authentic story that feels like it's an Australia-New Zealand story, rather than just someone comes in here and we can make it work through finances, which I know I'm not the only one with this thinking, but I think it's really valid, So I'm always a story first guy. So an authentic story. We're always looking for fresh, bold, brave stories. I think there's so much content out there that you need something different. But whether your idea is in a genre, that's fine. But how are you twisting that genre and making sure that those people who like that genre are watching something a bit new? So that's kind of, I don't know if that answered that question, but.
No, it does. I mean, one of the most interesting New Zealand films I saw recently, last year, I thought was really good, was Muru.
Yeah.
Which, so interesting that's obviously such a big story, a big part of New Zealand's
Yeah,
history. And here in Australia, so many people didn't know anything about it, but were so
yeah,
close.
yeah.
Um, and so I think that there really is that opportunity, even though we're close. I think there's so much more collaboration that could be had for
Yeah,
something
I
like
think so too. Yeah, I thought Muru was great. I saw that at the movies and thought it was. I think they did a great job of that. That it was an authentic story, but they managed to they kept it. They had some action and it was great. I thought they did a top job on that. But for me, Australia feels like that we all talk about. There are cousins across the ditch and all that, and it's genuine and we're close and we're all working to working for the same thing. We all want cool stories, and if we can get them funded on a better level, and getting them funded is a tricky part. If we can get them funded through co-productions, but ensuring that the idea is authentic and real, I think that's why I'm a massive fan of trying to get things going together earlier.
Mm.
And I've talked with some networks over there about doing some match funding where we put some money on the table, us and another network, and we kind of get exciting writers to jam together, so it feels authentic.
When you have a co-production like that, or you've got someone like what you were saying before, having Australian writers maybe writing it and setting it in New Zealand with New Zealand characters or something that's not as blended as what the hopes are for. How difficult do you think it is for filmmakers or writers or producers to tell those cross-cultural stories without being there and having someone from that culture on the team? What I think what pitfalls would you advise them to avoid? Is it getting someone there on earlier or something like that?
Yeah, like we have people, I've been pitched stuff which is a New Zealand story when it's a Māori story, for example, but with a foreign producer. So it's imperative for us at Sky Originals that the Māori culture is looked after and protected, and it's done correctly. Now, I'm clearly not Māori, and I'm very aware of that. My first thing with all creatives is you will get feedback and thoughts from me on story, but when it comes to a cultural thing, I'm not equipped, nor should I be, and that's I trust you. But as a backstop, we do need someone who isn't part of the team, who can just cast an eye over it and kind of, let us rest assured this is correct and is going to work. So I think you need to find that person. I guess I just go back to earlier. Earlier is better, right? Get someone on earlier before you go down a rabbit hole and you discover that this isn't the right direction we should be going. I love the idea of Indigenous from both countries working together, and there's a lot of synergy there. And I know of shows that have been and films that have been done here and in Canada, for example, was a really good example of that. But it's an exciting space and some really awesome talent around. But I always work on make sure you have that person who's well respected, who can speak for your culture of, clearly I can't. So,
Yeah, no, 100% makes sense, I think. And I think it's so important to get that authentic, I suppose, is the word I'm looking.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing for me is that I'm really, and I remember, there are some shows that we have a transgender drama, a fabulous Muslim story, a story from an Iranian Pakistani writer. We have a show called Broken Backs and Mountains coming up, which is set in a spinal unit. It's a spinal unit comedy, right? So there's all these kind of super cool, interesting shows. But naively, like I think I am, and I've asked, but I said I love the idea that one day I don't need to say it's a Muslim story. I don't need to say that as a transgender story. That it's a love story is what and I've asked the Rambo community guys within Sky, and I said, are we there? But we're not there yet, but it will be cool to one day just kind of commission things that are, it's a great family story, and it happens to be a Muslim one. You know what I mean? And that's the goal, and that's what I would love.
Well, speaking about the sorts of shows that you guys are commissioning, when you come to Screen Forever, or when I don't know if you're coming in person or digitally.
I'm coming. Yeah.
But there's, you're doing a ready, steady pitch session, or a few of those as well. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys at Sky Originals are looking for?
Yeah, sure. Like, we, our motto is, like it has been since we started, is brave, bold, intrinsically New Zealand stories. I'm up for taking a risk, I like things that we haven't seen before, and I sound like a smartass, and I don't mean to, but it's like the hint is in the name. We're Sky Originals, so the more original it can be, the better, So that's how we have been pitching. And the intrinsically New Zealand thing, which I referred to earlier, is we are proudly, Sky is proudly a New Zealand owned company. It's a proudly New Zealand company here. And it's really important that we're supporting local. So we've done that with a whole bunch of really fabulous shows, and we want to continue. Raised by Refugees is one, Miles from Nowhere is another, Not Even, Rurangi. So these beautiful shows from some new voices and diverse storytelling. And we want to continue to do that, but I'm also looking, once we really get those foundations going, and we keep supporting that, is that to look broader and wider, and for more co-productions, and then eventually more kind of international shows that we can kind of bring. So at the moment, and a lot of it is driven by, I'm going to contradict myself because I said I'm a story guy first, but a lot of it, for the reality for something to be funded through our screen initiatives here, it needs to have it needs to be a New Zealand story, or have a New Zealand connection, right? Or if you're looking to finance it through our screen production grant, but you don't get as as attractive rebates, it needs to be able to be shot or produced or something here, right? As with everywhere in the world. So, what am I looking for? We are really open to all genres. We love the idea for Prime, our channel here. We love, we've got lovely cozy crimes going on, broad family drama I would love, but also I'm a massive fan of the short half-hour comedy dramas with big hearts that will have you laughing at one point and crying next. And then our Neon platform, which is our premium streaming platform here, which we have exclusive HBO content on, and it's our premium kind of thing, are those big premium shows that we like our serial killer series. That's their big international shows. So quite wide. One-off feature films are not difficult for us. I love the idea of being able to do that at some point, but kind of like I guess probably with a lot of networks, the one-off film is hard. It's a one play, and put all the marketing and publicity behind it. But long form returning series with big hearts that are going to grip our audience. So very broad, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's a really detailed explanation.
Yeah.
But I also think that you touched on your big crime series.
Yes.
And I think crime's one of those genres that's really just blown up recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Same with like documentaries in the age of Netflix
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. As obviously as a commissioner, but then also as a filmmaker yourself and a writer and producer.
Yeah.
What do you think the next big thing is? What should people be looking out for?
Yeah, it's so hard. I don't know if there's look, personally, I don't know if there's going to be this specific, like at the moment, you're right. Like I'm loving all the sport docos, they're really good, the Drive to Survives and all, suddenly I was watching this great show about golf, and I'm like, I've been watching 8 episodes of this golf doco. We want to be ahead of the curve and do new things. I think just original, like I think when you look at the hits that have come out, we're watching Beef at the moment. There's just something about that show that it feels fresh and original. So I'm trying to give you an answer on what the next big thing is, and it's going to be the classic. We won't know until it arrives. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to say that. Crime will always be popular. Crime's been popular all the time, right? Like police shows and things, they're still being made, documentary, big, true crime, still massive. Those, I can't see those. I think there might be an overload of true crime docos at some point, maybe, but we're still lapping them up, But from my perspective, big premium co-productions would be great.
And so finally, Screen Forever is coming up in May, and I'm sure you've been to conferences like this before and been involved in this sort of thing before. But for those who are new to the industry or those who are new to Screen Forever itself, and they're considering it, what can they expect, and why is it worth their time?
So I haven't been to Screen. I'm a newbie at Screen Forever, so I'm going to be that new guy walking around. I have been to MIP, and I know they are super overwhelming if you haven't been there before, and you're in Cannes and it's very European and hammered by so much going on, and you kind of wander around going, well, I don't have all these dates in my diary. I think Australia and New Zealand is a much more, I'd like to think, a lot more chilled and laid back, and I think while having meetings are really good, I think, don't underestimate how great the social stuff is when you bump into someone, and I went to Europe at the end of last year, and I didn't go to MIP, and instead I went to Paris and I went to London, and instead of having a whole bunch of short little 20-minute meetings, I was much more selective and had 2-hour lunches with people, and I found that a really good way, because for me everything is about relationships, and I could sit down and have lunch with someone for 2 hours and we don't even really talk business for the first hour, because we're like, you're getting to know each other. And I think that is the beauty. Yeah, enjoying your lunch, I'm sitting there in Paris having a glass of wine going, geez, this is pretty good, But you do, like, I find that really good. So don't underestimate how great the social stuff is, So many, and I'm sure everyone who producers and networks, or if they're watching this, will all go, yeah, it's 101, Thomas, but it's true, and the other thing, just from a commissioner's perspective, when people pitch to me, I get pitched. Sometimes people pitch me a whole lot of stuff at once, and I'm sitting at a table and they're going, here's this, and you're getting so many. Whereas what I think there will be this, this written kind of, this unsaid understanding that, well, obviously not all of these are going to be made, right? And we're not going to get all of these made. So what I care about is people's passion, and I go, don't pitch me 10 things, pitch me the two that you really want and sell them to me and tell me why they're going to be great. So keep your pitches really focused, and make them about and make me feel something, whether I'm tear up or freak out or laugh or whatever. That's the connection that I need, because I'm a story guy at heart, and that's what it all is for me. So make sure you attend the social events. Don't be afraid to go up and introduce yourself to people, like no one's going to worry if you go hi. And I have always been, be brave and bold in your approach. And if you don't ask, you won't get, and what's the worst thing they can say is, no, we don't have time, or no, you can't have that actor.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Thomas, and looking forward to seeing you at Screen Forever.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you for having me and for listening to my rambling.